This is Hank Dillon, the Bigfoot Hunter, a Hidden Corners exclusive. A Watcher in the Woods, Part 10. Now, in the previous episode, Hank Dillon is shaken after his brother Wade uncovers a disturbing truth. Earl Rollins, the man funding Hank's search for Bigfoot, it's actually Frank Sterling, the disgraced former director of Project Silva. Now, Sterling, once a brilliant scientist, was ousted from the project for conducting horrific experiments, trying to create human-animal hybrids for his twisted research. Meanwhile, Tom Sheffield and Darnell Rhodes continue their desperate escape through the wilderness. Back at Project Silva's facility, Black Dome, chaos erupts as a new team is dispatched to locate the missing Bravo 4 squad. Hank, shaken but determined, has a heart-to-heart talk with Michelle, who urges him to be careful and not let his obsession consume him. And now we continue with this week's story. Tom Sheffield leaned against the cracked, moss-covered wall of the old shack, his twisted ankle wrapped in a makeshift bandage of torn shirt fabric. He watched the trees. His eyes were darting with every rustle, every shadow that seemed to dance in the fading twilight. Darnell was pacing, his phone clutched tightly in his hand, tension etched into his face. "Your contact. How can we be sure he isn't being followed?" Tom asked, trying to ignore the throbbing pain in his ankle. Darnell nodded. "Well, Mark's a pro. He's the best you can find. If anyone can shake a tail, it'd be him." They didn't have to wait long. Headlights cut through the thickening mist, a dark sedan easing onto the dirt path. The car's lights clicked off before the engine died, leaving them in a shadow. The door swung open, and a figure stepped out. A figure that appeared to be a woman, dressed in black tactical clothing, her hair pulled back into a tight ponytail. She moved with a quiet, feline grace, approaching without hesitation. "Darnell," she said, her voice low and even, "you look like hell." "Hello, Dusty," Darnell grimaced. "I told Mark to come, not you." Darnell glanced over to Tom. "I'd like you to meet Dusty Rhodes, my daughter." Tom shifted, trying to sit up straighter. "Dusty Rhodes? Now that's a name I won't soon forget. I'm Tom Sheffield," he offered, managing a grin. The woman's sharp eyes shifted to Tom, sizing him up in a heartbeat. "Let's keep the introduction short. We don't have time to waste." Tom felt a strange mix of relief and unease. He glanced at Darnell. "Didn't know you had a daughter." "And neither did I," Darnell said, helping Tom limp toward the car. "Well, not until a couple years ago." Dusty opened the rear door, scanning the tree line before waving them in. And once they were inside and on the move, the darkness pressing against the windows, Tom's curiosity got the better of him. "So, just a couple of years ago, huh? Boy, that's a story I'd like to hear, Darnell." Darnell leaned back in the passenger seat, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "Yep, a couple years ago. Got a call from a private investigator. Said I had a daughter. Apparently a woman I dated in college who never told me. I was skeptical, of course. I ran a full background check, did my own digging, and the more I dug, the more it checked out. Finally, we set up a meeting." Darnell's lips curled into a half smile. "Turns out the investigator was actually my daughter, Dusty. She's been making sure I wasn't some deadbeat or worse." Tom looked at Dusty's reflection in the rearview mirror. He thought he could see a resemblance. Her eyes were fixed on the road, her face unreadable. "So, you're a private investigator?" "Something like that," she said. "Sometimes I'm just a daughter trying to keep her old man out of trouble." Darnell chuckled, but there was an edge to it. "Yeah, well, trouble seems to have found me anyway." Tom leaned back, his mind racing. Darnell Rhodes had a secret daughter who was not only a private investigator, but seemed to know her way around the rescue mission. "Well, where are we going?" Tom asked. "Safe house," Dusty replied. "Long as you do what I say, we'll get you clear of this mess." The road wound through the dense forest, the trees looming like silent sentinels on either side. Inside the car, the air was thick with tension. The only sound is the steady hum of the engine and the faint rustle of leaves brushing against the windows. Tom leaned his head against the cool glass, watching the darkness race by. His ankle throbbed, but his thoughts were racing faster than the pain. Dusty's presence was a curveball he hadn't expected. Tom leaned forward from the back seat, studying Dusty's profile. "You sure this safe house is secure?" "It's off-grid," she replied, her tone clipped and professional. "Nobody knows about it but me." Dusty's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "So, who are these people chasing you? And why are they willing to kill to get to you, Darnell?" Darnell exchanged a glance with Tom. "Project Silva. It's a government operation. Big, secret, and deadly. They study cryptids, and they experiment on them. And they'll do anything to keep those experiments under wraps." Dusty's eyes widened. "Experiment? On Bigfoot?" Tom saw what looked like a smile of disbelief cross her stern face. "Among other things," Darnell replied, "they've tried crossbreeding, manipulating genetics, creating hybrids." "Hybrids?" Dusty's voice was a mix of disbelief and humor. "You can't be serious." Darnell's jaw tightened up. "Dead serious. And if you think that's the worst they've done, you're in for a surprise." Tom shivered despite the warmth of the car. "And you? You were part of it?" Dusty asked. Darnell looked away. "I was a consultant once. I got out when I realized how far they were willing to go." "So," Dusty interjected, "they think you know too much? That you might go public?" "Well, that's why we're running," Darnell admitted. I've got documents and thumb drives, proof of what they're doing." Dusty's jaw tightened, making her face look even more stern. "So they're trying to erase you, I get it." She glanced at Tom. "And you? How are you involved in all this?" Tom's cold blue eyes met hers in the mirror. "Because I've seen them, the Bigfoot, hanging around my property in Colorado, and I've seen what the government is doing to try to cover it up. I came out here seeking answers." The car jostled over a pothole, and Tom winced as his ankle throbbed. He tried to relax. It was just impossible. They were racing into the darkness, being hunted like prey, holding secrets that could shake the world. "Dusty," he ventured, "thank you for coming to our rescue." Her lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "Well, don't thank me, because you're not out of the woods yet." As they rounded a bend in the road, her words proved prophetic. A dark SUV with tinted windows was parked across the narrow path, blocking their way. The headlights flashed on, blinding them. "Dusty!" Darnell shouted. "Hang on," she barked, slamming the car into reverse and spinning the steer wheel. The tires screamed, the engine roared, and Tom's heart raced. But behind them, another pair of headlights burst through the trees. "It's an ambush!" Tom yelled, gripping the door handle. "Hold on," Dusty snarled, shoving the car into drive, steering off the dirt path and into the thick forest. Branches scraped the window like claws, the vehicle bouncing and jerking. Shots rang out behind him, the bullets tearing into the leaves. Tom ducked instinctively, his heart pounding in his ears. Dusty kept the accelerator floored, her face a mask of fierce determination. The forest seemed to close in, trees rushing past in a blur. Another gunshot, then another, one tire exploding with a sharp bang. "We're losing air," Darnell shouted. "I know," Dusty snapped, fighting the steering wheel, "but I'm not stopping." Tom clenched his teeth, his fingers digging into the seat. Ahead, a faint light broke through the trees. An old cabin. A flicker of hope in the darkness. Dusty aimed straight for it, the car skidding to a halt just outside. "Out! Move!" she barked. Darnell helped Tom out of the car, half carrying him as they stumbled toward the cabin. Dusty was already at the door, kicking it open and pulling them inside. A gunshot shattered the rear window of the car. Dusty slammed the door shut, locking it and shoving a heavy beam across it. "They won't give up," Tom said, his chest heaving. Dusty's eyes were ice cold. "And we won't either." And as the sound of footsteps crunched through the forest outside, Dusty rose, pulled a sleek, matte black pistol from her jacket and chambered around. Time to show these bastards who they're dealing with. The cabin was small and cramped, a single-room structure with faded, peeling wallpaper and a dusty fireplace. The air smelled of damp wood and old tobacco. Darnell helped Tom to a battered old chair in the corner. Tom's face was pale, and he was sweating from the pain in his ankle. Dusty pulled the curtain shut, then crouched by the single window, peering out through a narrow crack. "They're closing in," she whispered. "Maybe 4, 5 of them. Standard tactical formation." Tom's chest tightened. "You've done this before." "Occupational hazard," she replied flatly. Dusty pulled a second pistol from an ankle holster and passed it to Darnell. "Stay low. Cover the door. If they breach, shoot to kill." Tom's breathing was fast and shallow. His mind was racing. He had survived fights before, but nothing like this. This was a kill team, and they were the prey. A loud crunch of leaves just outside. Another crack of a branch. Shadows moved past the window. Dusty's voice was calm. Her eyes were hard. "They'll breach in 3, 2. A loud crash as the front door buckled inward. "Contact!" Dusty roared, firing 2 precise shots through the door frame. The muzzle flashes lit up her face, cold and focused. One of the shadows staggered back, crying out. Another rushed in just as Darnell's pistol barked twice, and the attacker crumpled, clutching his shoulder. Tom ducked lower, his heart pounding like a drum, the air filled with the acid smoke of gunpowder. "Cover the windows," Dusty ordered. She grabbed the battered wooden table and shoved it against the door, flipping it for cover. "They'll try to circle around." Darnell moved to the other side of the room, his hands steady as he reloaded. "Tom, can you shoot?" Tom hesitated, then nodded. Pain etched across his face. "Yeah, I can shoot." Tom tossed him the small revolver. "Then watch the rear window. If they try to flank, make 'em regret it." Tom's hand shook slightly as he gripped the weapon. His mind was a storm of fear and adrenaline. "Darnell, who are these guys? They don't move like military." Dusty nodded her head, her eyes focused on the door. "They're sloppy, private goons, freelancers, hired killers." Tom forced a smile despite the fear. "Well, I came here looking for the truth. Looked like I got more than I bargained for." "Movement east side," Dusty snapped, raising her pistol. A shape rushed the window. Glass shattered and Dusty's gun barked twice. A grunt. Then the shape dropped out of sight. Darnell's jaw tightened. "Dusty, we can't stay here forever." "We won't," she replied, her voice a calm, dangerous whisper. "We'll leave as soon as every last one of these bastards is dead." Wade Dillon leaned back in his creaking office chair, the pale glow of his computer screen casting shadows across his tired face. His fingers trembled slightly as he scrolled through the classified documents he had just hacked his way into. Documents so highly restricted they were practically myth. But there they were, in black and white, the cold, clinical language of bureaucratic evil. And in large black letters, Project Silva, Interspecies Hybridization Program. Subject designation, Hybrid entity test subject 013. Status: active, contained. Genetic composition: 48% Homo sapien DNA, 47% cryptid species, suspected Gigantopithecus variant, 5% experimental augmentation, neural enhancement protocol. Wade's jaw tightened as he read it, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. Then, cognitive capacity, elevated, capable of complex reasoning, rudimentary language skills, and strategic problem solving. Physical capabilities, superhuman strength, heightened senses, regenerative healing. Psychological profile, aggressive when threatened, but demonstrates manipulative intelligence. Containment protocol, secure sector, facility Black Dome, sub-level 4, containment chamber 13. Incident history: 013, breached containment during initial neurological calibration. 3 personnel injured, 1 fatality. Psychological conditioning program reestablished. Current status: compliant. Wade leaned back and rubbed his face, trying to make sense of what he was reading. This wasn't just a rogue research team. This was something far darker. Sterling's experiments hadn't just been continued, they'd been perfected. And somewhere deep beneath the earth in facility Black Dome, they had succeeded in creating the unthinkable. A creature that was neither fully human nor fully beast. Wade stared at the screen, his fingers frozen over the keys. He needed to warn his brother. He wanted to tell Hank to drop everything, to run, to disappear. But then a picture filled the monitor screen and caught Wade's full attention. Somehow, he had hacked into a security camera feed of Facility Black Dome sub-level 4, showing cold, sterile corridors lit with pale fluorescent lights and a massive reinforced glass chamber. And inside that chamber, a hulking figure stood in the shadows, its broad shoulders heaving with each breath. It shifted slightly, and a single glowing, intelligent eye caught the camera, fixing directly on it. The creature's lips curled ever so slightly in a mockery of a smile. Wade's heart plummeted. It was as if it knew it was being watched, and somehow he had the horrifying sense that it knew he was watching too. In the Facility Black Dome, buried beneath the Colorado Rockies, amidst a maze of reinforced corridors and subterranean tunnels, biometric scanners and steel-reinforced blast doors gave one the sense that it was impenetrable. But all of that security felt like paper as the chaos erupted. Sirens wailed, red emergency lights cast the corridors in a sinister glow, and a mechanical voice echoed over the intercom. Emergency protocol, Alpha 6, all personnel proceed to secure zones. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Colonel Maureen Kellis burst into the control room, her voice a commanding bark over the chaos. Status report. What the hell is going on? A terrified young technician spun in his chair, his face pale. Ma'am, we've got multiple breaches on the surface. Thermal and motion sensors are going off everywhere. Subject entities have surrounded the exterior. Commandeer the drones. We need eyes in the air. The technician's fingers danced over the keyboard. Already deployed, ma'am, but they're not responding. We've lost control. Damn it, Kellis spun around, glaring at Commander Nash, who had just entered the room. Where are the rapid response teams? Delta and Echo teams are arming up, but they won't reach the exterior for another 10 minutes. 10 minutes is too long, Kellis snapped. Another voice crackled over the comms. Colonel, we have seismic readings, multiple underground vibrations. They're not just outside. They're attempting to breach the lower levels. Nash's face drained of color. They're digging? They're tunneling? That's impossible. On one of the monitors, a thermal camera displayed a horrifying image. massive heat signatures moving beneath the rocky earth, converging on the facility's lower levels. "Sublevel 3 breach!" a voice screamed over the intercom. "Multiple entities! Oh God, they're in—" The feed cut off, replaced by static. "Seal off Sublevel 3, Kellis shouted. "Already doing it, ma'am, but there are still people down there. Sacrifices we can't avoid," she said harshly. "Nash, have the guards fall back to choke points. We hold them there." A new voice, panicked, desperate, came over the speakers. "This is Dr. Cho in medical. We need help. Something's ripping the doors off. It's—" The sound of screeching metal drowned out the rest. "Send a squad to medical," Kellis ordered. "Nash, take command of the tactical teams." "Yes, ma'am." Nash bolted from the room, already barking orders into his radio. Kellis leaned over the technician's console, her voice low and urgent. "How close are they to Sublevel 4? "Too close, Colonel. If they breach Sublevel 4, then they reach the hybrid." Another screen flickered. Security footage from Sublevel 4, Containment Chamber 13. The reinforced glass chamber containing the hybrid entity. But it wasn't still. It was pacing. Watching. And then it looked up, directly at the camera. A low, guttural growl filled the control room speakers, sending a shiver down everyone's spine. "Colonel!" The technician's voice was barely a whisper. "I think it knows." "Knows what?" Kellis snapped. "I think it knows they're coming." The facility shuddered, dust trickling from the ceiling panels as another explosion echoed from below. Kellis clenched her fists, her mind racing. "Give me direct feed to all upper command. We're authorizing maximum force. If they breach Sublevel 4, we initiate full containment procedures." "Full containment?" The technician's voice was weak. "But ma'am, that means we'll be locked in here. All of us." Kellis leaned in close, her voice as cold as the steel walls around them. "Better to be locked in here with them than to let the world know what we've done." Another explosion rocked the facility. A low, distant howl echoed through the ventilation shafts, a deep, chilling sound that was somehow more intelligent than any animal's. Kellis watched the screen as the hybrid tilted his head, lips curling into that horrible, knowing smile. This was a siege, and it was only the beginning. Hank paced the length of the cabin's small kitchen, his boots tapping against the worn pine floorboards. Michelle sat at the rustic dining table, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her coffee mug. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, the mountains looming dark and silent as the stars twinkled overhead. "I don't know, Michelle. I feel like we can't just sit on this information," Hank said, his voice edged with frustration. "Earl Rollins isn't just some obsessed cryptic fanatic. He's a madman with a history they buried because they couldn't let the world know what he'd done. But if we go public, if we expose him," Michelle countered, her voice steady but her eyes full of worry, "we're not just dealing with him. We're dealing with whoever is still running Project Silva. And I think they'll have no problem silencing us." Hank stopped pacing and leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "I know, but what's the alternative? We can't just let this psycho keep hunting these creatures, keep chasing his twisted dream of creating some hybrid species." Michelle took a deep breath. "There has to be a way to do this safely. What if we gather more evidence first? Everything we can find, everything Wade finds. And then we start right here," Michelle said, her voice firmer. "We create a podcast, a YouTube channel. We tell the story, carefully, without giving away everything. We get people listening and questioning. And then, if we vanish, they'll know where to look." Hank's expression softened. "Well, that's an interesting idea. You're talking about turning this into some kind of whistleblower campaign?" "Exactly. We don't go in with a full expose yet. We plant seeds, and we build an audience who will care if we disappear." Hank stared at her, a slow smile breaking through his worried frown. I like it. We build the story. We bring in Wade's information, Tom's first-hand account, if they make it out, and we blow this thing wide open. But we keep the real dirt hidden until we have enough to protect ourselves. Michelle reached across the table, taking his hand. "Just promise me one thing, Hank. No going off alone. No secret plans without telling me." Hank squeezed her hand. "Well, I promise. But we better get ready. Once we start this, there's no turning back." Facility Black Dome was shaking like a giant was pounding on it from all sides. Sirens wailed, red emergency lights were casting pulsing shadows along the steel corridors. Colonel Maureen Kellis stood at the center of the control room, barking orders, her voice barely cutting through the noise. "Delta Team, report," she demanded, gripping the edge of the console. "I want eyes on sub-level 3. Tactical, give me a status." The radio crackled with static, and then a panicked voice. "Delta is falling back. Multiple hostiles. Massive. They're coming out of the walls. We've lost McAllister and—" The transmission ended in a static scream. Kellis's jaw clenched. "Get me Echo Team. Where the hell is Nash?" "They're pinned down in the west corridor, ma'am," the technician at the console stuttered. "Entities breached the secondary perimeter." "Those things shouldn't even know where our perimeters are," Kellis snapped. "How are they moving so precisely?" "Ma'am, they seem to be what, Private?" Kellis demanded, leaning over his shoulder. The young man's fingers trembled as he tapped on the console, bringing up a screen showing a thermal scan. They're moving in sync." On the monitor, a cluster of massive heat signatures shifted like a wolf pack, converging and splitting with a terrifying sense of purpose. One group was tearing through the upper levels while another was tunneling closer to sub-level 4. A deep, metallic groan echoed through the walls. The hybrid's chamber was visible on another monitor. The creature staring at the camera with an almost amused expression, like the king watching a rebellion. "Reinforce sub-level 4, Kellis shouted. "Double the security there. Nothing gets to the hybrid." But even as she spoke, the feed from sub-level 4's main access corridor flickered. Security doors were being clawed apart, shredded like paper. The guards stationed there were firing their weapons, their bullets seeming to do little more than anger the hulking shapes that tore through them. "Ma'am, security is collapsing," whispered the technician. "Seal it. We can't let those things reach the hybrid." "But our people," I said, "seal it." The reinforced bulkhead doors began to close, inching shut even as guards pounded on them from the other side, screaming to be let through. A clawed, shadowy figure lunged into the narrowing gap, its massive arm reaching out, seizing one of the fleeing guards, pulling him back into the darkness. Blood sprayed against the closing door. Kellis hissed, "Get a tactical override on all blast doors. We're going full lockdown." "Containment protocol is in effect," the intercom announced in a cold, mechanical voice. Kellis took a deep, shaking breath. "Focus, everyone. We need to maintain control of the main command center. This is just a breach. Containment is still possible." Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. The sirens went silent, replaced by an eerie, suffocating stillness. Only the dim emergency lights remained, casting blood-red shadows along the walls. The technician's voice trembled. "Ma'am, we've lost main power. We're on emergency backups." "Impossible. Those are on a separate grid." But then a new screen flickered to life. The security feed from outside the facility. Massive, furry shapes moved about in the darkness, creeping closer to the main surface entrance. Kellis's radio crackled with Nash's voice. Colonel, they're everywhere. I don't know how, but they're inside and outside. We can't hold... And then static. Come on, Nash, Kellis snarled, slamming her fist against the console. Colonel, the technician's voice was a whisper. I'm reading secondary power fluctuations. Someone is accessing our systems remotely. Are you telling me we have a hacker? I don't think it's a hacker, ma'am, he whispered. It's the hybrid. It's tapping into our system. The hybrid on the screen leaned back, folding its massive arms. And then the other feeds, cameras throughout the facility, flickered, each one showing the dark, menacing shapes of the creatures hunting through the corridors, tearing through doors and dragging bodies away. Kellis's breathing came faster. How the hell is he doing that? How can he control our entire communication systems from his cell, isolate the command system, cut the hybrid's access? I'm trying, but it's overriding our commands faster than I can... The main control room door suddenly slammed shut, locking with a heavy, echoing clang. Kellis's eyes went wide. It's sealed us in here. Colonel, another voice from the back of the room shouted. They've broken through sub-level 3. They're in the ventilation shafts. As the air vents overhead began to rattle, Kellis gripped the technician's shoulder. Patch me through to all remaining teams. We have to retake control. His shaking hands moved frantically. Ma'am, the hybrid has locked us out of the system. We're trapped. A deep, thundering crash echoed above them. Dust shook loose from the ceiling tiles. Something massive struck the ceiling vent, buckling the metal. Another blow. Claws tore through it, a bestial snarl echoing down. Everyone, weapons ready, Kellis shouted, her pistol already in her hand. The vent exploded downward and a monstrous clawed hand reached down into the room. Fire! Colonel Kellis screamed. The hybrid's face appeared on every screen, every monitor, watching with a cold, calculating amusement. A final, bone-shattering crash, and the main door burst inward, metal shards flying like shrapnel. The creatures poured in. A tide of snarling, clawed shadows. Screams filled the control room, swallowed by the cacophony of tearing flesh, splintering bones, and the snarls of the predators. The red emergency lights flickered again, and then they went dark. Only the echo of dying screams remained, and then silence, cold, empty. And then, in the darkness, a single, chilling whisper echoed through the dead comms. Facility, Black Dome, has fallen. From the safe confines of his office in Denver, Wade Dillon held his breath as he watched the horror unfold across his monitor till the screen went black.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode, and I hope you'll join us next week for another installment of Hank Dillon, Bigfoot Hunter. And until then, have a great week, everyone.